glad to finally meet all of you and to be here and just to kind of talk and like get to know everybody and like just to share. It's like one of my favorite things about like color guard and like doing this series again. I was so excited when Martell and I were talking about bringing it back again. I was like, yes, please, because I love this. And didn't get to do all of the series last year, but the ones that I participated in, they were so beneficial. And even the people that participated in it last year, they were all saying how beneficial and helpful it was. And so I was excited to be able to bring this back again, and especially talking about the topic that we're covering today, and just like how much things have changed, and just to kind of like see everyone's experiences. I think it's super necessary and super relevant right now, especially as we're starting to navigate the new norm, quote unquote. And yeah, I'm really excited. Glad to have our panelists.
Hey, so let's get this started. I'm horrible at presentation, so I'm sorry if you see any grammatical errors, Nicole. Please bear with me. That's a disclaimer. Just let you know. Nicole's gonna get me. Okay. Welcome to our Instructors Roundtable Series, sponsored by Teacher Independent Winter Guard. They founded by Mississippi with Independent A. Tonight, that's my fall team. Oh, this is cute. Tonight we're going to introduce our panelists. We're going to let them introduce herself. First up, we have Miss Nicole Younger.
Hello. My name is Nicole Younger. I have been in the color guard activity for 20 plus years. Recently, this past winter, just started judging in different circuits, mainly tri-state and in the Mississippi, Louisiana, New Orleans circuit. I am still new to the judging part of things, but hopefully we'll be trialing for DCI this summer or next summer. And also I am the founder of the Cookout, and we just had our first one this past winter season. We're gonna be back in 2023. Also a member of the WGI Diversity and Inclusion Committee and a leadership council member of our Marching Counts, which is a diversity and inclusion committee for DCI.
All the work. Love you, Nicole. She is so good. Next up we have
Hello, yes, I am Robert Jordan. I'm originally from Southern California. About a year ago, I moved to St. Louis, and now I spend a lot of my time traveling around choreographing. I marched with Blue Devils and Fantasia Winter Guard, and yeah, now I just travel around. I choreograph, I do technique clinics. I do a lot of staging and design for about 23 programs around the country, and then one in the Netherlands as well. And then aside from that, yeah. And then I have about 10 years of experience doing this.
Love you, Robert. Love you, Robert. Love you, Robert.
Love you.
All right, so let's get started. All right, our first question of tonight was, where was you when WGI announced that the 2020 World Championship was canceled? And how did that make you feel?
I was at a Wingstop. I was at a Wingstop eating lunch, yep, and I remember getting the news. And unfortunately, one of my friends was a marching box at the time as well, so their season obviously was up in the air now. I was teaching.
Do you want me to go get Caroline? Oh. Okay.
I was teaching a few programs, and obviously we didn't know what was going to happen. The feeling was more just like, obviously, like your heart just dropped. You saw the news, you didn't know what to do. You just start thinking about every single program or school you have, how you're going to tell the kids, tell the parents, tell the directors if they're not following the WGI stuff. So that was my experience, at least. I was at a Wingstop just waiting to see if the news was going to drop, and then it did.
I was teaching I was a director of a high school group, And we literally had just gotten the news that we weren't having championships for our circuit. And, we're pretty much devastated by that because I'm having to deal with, a bunch of high school kids with this and myself. And then I found out that, WGI was canceled, and I was on staff with Origins, and they were having a fantastic season. So it was just devastating that we couldn't show that show to everyone because it was like that. It was just great. But yeah, I remember that. I can remember everything about that day. It's sad. It's heartbreaking. It was
Yes.
Small snippet here. I was actually in a Dayton rehearsal. We was actually in a Dayton rehearsal with my I was working with an open class group out of Mandeville, Louisiana, Mandeville High School.
Oh yeah.
We was literally in rehearsal when they canceled World Championships. They canceled World Championships or canceled our state championships.
Yeah, no, same for us.
But we was literally in rehearsal, and those kids was like, they all had got their phones on the break. And it was like, oh my gosh, because literally, like, that's why we was there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Ugh.
Yeah, the awful feeling that was. God.
I just don't wish it on anyone ever again. That kind of thing. I mean, you're feeling the feelings, and your kids are feeling the feelings, and it's just like you want to comfort them, but at the same time, you need it too. Like you want to go just as bad as they do, and they want to perform. You want them to perform. And it was just what we could do, or it's what WGI could do to make sure that everyone was safe. And yes, because the world followed suit, a lot of things. And so you just had to hold on to the fact that hope they did as much as they could in their last performance, or, the next time, you just don't take these last, anytime we say, okay, one more time, don't take those one more times for granted anymore. Because you never know, it could be the last time.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 2. What did we learn from the shutdown?
I'll take this one. I'll go first. I will tell you the first thing that happened, or that I learned, is that my schedule went from being every day having something to do to having nothing to do at any day. And for years and years and years when I've taught, my rule of thumb, which is not a healthy one, was if it works out on paper, it can work out on real life. And that's not being very nice to yourself, just mentally. So yeah, there were some days where I was teaching 6 days a week. That's not great for anybody to do. So once that time is given back to you, you're like, okay, well, what do I do with that? And then, how do I still stay on top of things as an educator, or as, how do I look at my kids? How do I talk to my kids? How do I relate to my kids when I'm teaching? You think about that kind of thing too. And I even reflected even more on that, is just how much am I being valued? How much is my staff being valued? So yes, there's the creative side of all of that, and which we will all be creative. However, your worth, your self-respect, and that kind of thing have to play into that. It's a work environment for a lot of us. So you have to be happy at work. You have to be respected at work, and that kind of thing. And then you have to be able to give that kind of respect back out as well. So my thing that I learned is, at a certain time, there's an evolution that happens too when you're teaching, with some people, at least with me. And I was just I wanted to do more with the judging side. And so I dived into doing online adjudication training, so that's what I learned out of it. And I was nicer to myself.
Yeah, no, and that was very similar for me too. I went from working 7 to 9 every single day and just constantly doing color guard, constantly, and then for it to all just be shut down. And obviously for the first couple of weeks where everything was up in the air, so you didn't have rehearsals yet, and then getting everything set up virtually and stuff. But on the teaching side of things, it definitely taught me like there's so many other resources other than just in person to use. And I think we all found that too during the shutdown, is that like obviously Zoom came into play, like we're on right now, and a bunch of like the Remind, the Band app, more community feeling like on Facebook. There were just so many different things that us as instructors kind of had to put forth that we didn't really focus on before to make the kids feel more comfortable, because those are the only elements we had. We didn't have in person. We couldn't be a family. We couldn't sit in a circle, you know what I mean? And like go around and say each other's names. We had to do it on camera. So I think for me, definitely it taught me that even now we're back in person, I'm still trying to use these resources as much as possible. If a kid misses rehearsal, something like that, put them on that Zoom call, just prop the little phone up so they can watch, like little things like that definitely helped me kind of move forward. And then too, there's a larger sensitivity to sickness and well-being and stuff like that now. So for me as a coach too, I'm taking a lot more like intensity if a kid comes up to me and says, I'm feeling sick, I'm feeling faint, I'm feeling something like that, to where now a lot more pressure on us, and not even pressure, there's a lot more just like need for it to be a concern for all instructors, not to just, oh, you're feeling sick, just jump back in. And that for me was a big one too, to make sure that I'm really on top of the wellness and health side of things now too.
Yeah. That is a huge thing. I'm a very big like self-care advocate.
Yeah.
So yeah, and kids go through it, man. I mean, I don't know if I could be a high school kid today.
Right, like going through something like this and like one of the biggest moments of your young life is incredibly hard. So we saw how exhausted students were coming back this last year and stuff. And like, we have to have a sensitivity to it now. Kids are a little more tired than they used to be. You know what I mean? They're a little more out of it than they used to be. They're a tiny bit more scatterbrained than they used to be. So it's kind of like a little harder to reel kids in now to the focus aspect, but it's kind of, I feel like forcing us all as instructors to kind of like pull out bags of tricks and like find our own like way to reach the kids now. Pretty cool to see around the community.
That's it.
So much information, so interesting. So much information. So good at this. You're so great at this.
You just put two people together who like to talk.
Like, yeah, no, literally. True.
All right, next question. Question number 3. How did the shutdown affect your teaching style? And then Robert, I think you kind of hit up a little bit on this on the last question.
This one definitely made me, just like I mentioned before, like have a more, like a heightened sensitivity to the students' well-being, right? I feel like for so many years, you don't think about everything just shutting down, of course. So I feel like every year people tend to go harder and harder, especially when they stay at a program, you build and you build and you build, and that clues in your teaching style. And for me, I just learned that like, if you come in with that intensity right away, it's gonna scare off kids, especially right now. So for me, I definitely took more of a nurturing approach and more of like I want to make sure I get to know you as a performer and as a person, not just as a member of my color guard. I want to know like, if you're okay, are you okay at home? Is everything going all right in your life and things like that? So for me, I feel like it opened my teaching style a little bit more into a more nurturing type of way and less about just direct, like, here's all the information you need to be good and that's it, go be good.
For a very long time, like when we were going before, the shutdown happened, these kids, we saw these kids more than their family saw them. Yeah. And did we were less personable, you know what I mean? Like rehearsal, that kind of thing. And then, yeah, like you said, it takes you into another thing of how are you doing? And, when a kid knows that they are being valued past their skill set or being a dot on a field, then they're more enamored to come back and learn more because they're valued. We talked about this before. And we all know the more you show up, the more you're learning. And those kids will take home whatever they take home to practice, because that's going to show up in the next rehearsal in that whole big wheel. But after, the shutdown happened, like videos were a huge thing with the group that I was teaching. So there was lots of, okay, I'm going to focus in on you. And the more feedback you give a kid one-on-one, the more that they will give back to you, you know? So I think that that was a big, you know, change. If, however, for a bigger guard, unless you have like a bigger staff, that can be a lot on a person, you know? But yeah, I mean, I think just zeroing in on each kid as a tiny human and, you know, getting that part first, because, you know, you want them to love what they're doing and, you know, see if they want to stick around with it. So, yeah.
Damn, so good. I have nothing to say to that. All right. Next question. How has COVID affected groups in each classification, like A class, open class, world class, and their perspectives?
For me, looking at A class, I feel like COVID allowed more training. Very honestly, I feel like I saw an A class this year, like versus previous years. So I feel like because that happened, we saw a very large uptick in tricks in A class and like just skills that weren't really A class before. I think we saw a lot of people obviously on social media talking about a very similar thing too. I think open for me personally kind of stayed pretty similar. It was kind of always that like kind of like middle ground for open. And then for world, I feel like world got affected the most negatively just because it is like the most advanced classification. So they're doing the hardest tricks. So having to do the most advanced things over a virtual medium is way harder than just doing, say, drop spins or carves or something like that. You know what I mean? So asking your kids or having to try to teach your kids how to do a 6 double turnaround over Zoom so that they're ready for the winter season. You know what I mean? Or when you're shut down for 2 weeks and you have a world-class program that's 7 minutes long and you have all these crazy tricks in it and they now can't practice it, it's a lot harder for that classification versus something that is a little bit easier to practice at home when it's a little bit more, you know, on the A class side versus the world class side. So I feel like world class was affected the most personally just because of how much responsibility is on their backs as performers. And then A class, I feel like got a very big push and an uptick in technical skills. And we saw that because of all the tricks we saw from the top 12 or top 20 that we saw.
Yeah. I did a lot of watching this year, which was good because I've never been able to do that. It was the first time I'd gone to WGI and not, you know, been on someone else's schedule or not been part of a schedule. In what I saw, like, I thought, yes, A class had a lot more training. And it was so nice to see because it was just like, wow, this is A class. Well, and, you know, and then you see, you know, the different placements in those. So I think A class flourished from that. I think those programs flourished from having that time.
Yeah.
I did not get to see much open. From what I did see though, again, it probably, like, I think it stayed the same. So
yeah,
it's always really hard with an open class, like to, you know, to really talk about that. But with world, I will say, yes, the tricks and things, but I think it was more along the lines of a creative, like creatively, I feel like people dug deeper.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, I feel like that happened.
Yeah, like Roman Douglas in show, which is like the first of its kind. Yeah, being able to vote and stuff during the show, like never before seen, right? Like stuff like that is wild to see in world class. Yeah. And
so, I mean, I just feel like, and both scholastically and independently, and I always like watching like the independent world, I mean, not independent world, scholastic world, because I'm always like, these are children.
Yeah.
You know,
how are you doing what you're doing?
Right. And you watch them run and get like Dippin' Dots after they're done. And but I thought that creatively it was amazing to watch. I think, I mean, and across all of the groups though, I think creatively people came out of their box a lot. Yeah. You know, they weren't afraid to, I think either they had more time to dive deep or they were like, you know, I had this one season of I can do whatever I want, you know?
Yeah.
But you should always, you know what I mean, think that way. Like,
Yeah.
I hate to say this, but art is subjective and no one is like saying anything about your art. You should do it, you know? And I think that a lot of people took risks that they don't usually take. And that was exciting to see across the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
100% agree with that, especially like the work from the world class. I think AMP showed the world that you can be world class through performance as well as your skills.
Yeah. Yep.
That was
Wow.
Like that's a show for everyone. That's a show not just for a color guard person, not just for a marching arts person. That is a show for just anyone can watch that, enjoy it. Yeah, they'd love it.
Oh.
Like that's wild.
It's been a
Yeah.
long time since I giggled and watched a show, but I giggled.
Yeah, I was on my feet for like half the show. It was crazy.
So let's talk about that girl in Flanagan that had the boot on. They didn't.
I know.
I
I
didn't
know
know
the whole
talking about her.
boot.
They were like, she's doing everything. And it's just like, there is a part of me that's like, girl, are you okay? You know?
When she hit that speech, I was like, she's not gonna do it. She's not gonna do it. And she did it. I was like,
Yeah, I was watching her. Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy. Yeah.
I was like, somebody need to give her a scholarship. Man, I'll pay for a scholarship if I need to, because somebody need to get that baby a scholarship.
The boot scholarship.
There you go. They get one a year.
My next question is, what are some coping tools and mechanisms that help the success of a group survival you think that we have established this year?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think that is something that is, I hate to say it, but I think it's regional because it's going to be different in different parts. Like a group survival in some parts who are always successful at like world finals, like year after year after year. That's a culture that's been put together. You know what I mean? So it's harder to take them out of that than it is to build them up to that. Then there are some programs who are always, you know, small because of where they are. And that is a, you know, a recruiting thing, that is a regional thing, like that's, you know, where they are and what kind of resources they have. Like there's a lot that goes into that. And I think that I would just say maybe some, I don't want to say coping skills, but mechanism for group survival is just to make sure that you are recruiting, like actively recruiting a lot. Like even though the fall, like for high schools, excuse me, even though marching band's going on, you can still, you know, have different clinics happen when you go over to your middle school. Right before winter guard season starts, have, you know, the whole guard go over and, you know, do something. While winter guard season's happening, have the guard go over and do a show at your middle school, whatever schools are going to feed into you. But like the biggest thing is being visual and being seen. The more that a kid knows, like, especially if they're coming up, and I'm a big person in to get them when you're young, you know? So if they know what's going on, because there's a lot of groups that they don't know about color guard until they get to high school. And then there's some groups who they start when they're in 6th grade. So if you can, you know, get them when they're young, get them when they're young. If you can't, then your group needs to be seen more throughout your district.
Yeah, no, exact same thing. The biggest, I feel like, especially right now for survival, is just purely recruitment. Like it's a very big numbers game right now, unfortunately, for a lot of groups. Obviously, WGI took a lot of the limits away for like timing and stuff. So it allowed people to even put together smaller shows and things like that.
And virtual.
Yeah, aside from like the, like even the recruitment aspect of it too, like the retention aspect as well, and like making sure having bonding exercise every once in a while. If a kid does get sick or something like that happens in their family, making sure we're not pushing them too hard, but letting them grieve those things, just because every single person had someone that was affected or was affected by COVID. So things like that just need to be a little more like attuned to for all of us as instructors, and really making sure that when something like that does happen, not pushing a kid away, right? Because they just went through 2 years or 3 years of the pandemic. So now we're kind of hopefully on the outskirts of it, right? And making sure they understand that we're here for them at every time, right? They have a second family again, they have a place to go, and making sure they feel valued, just like we were talking about earlier. So they're not just a cog in the machine anymore, they're a member of a team that is trying to have a success.
Yeah.
Just making sure they know their place in the team.
I 100% agree with all that. I don't know if Nicole not this evening, but we have a program in our circuit that starts color guard at 5th grade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Homer Christian Community College, Homer Christian School. They have a cadet guard. It's literally only 5th graders. To see those kids be, what's the word for it? To see those kids be in this environment they didn't have no clue about, and just have joy to learn. I think it's just such a great sight to see that you have those kids at a young age excited about our activity, even though they don't know what the potential of what they can do yet. And I strongly suggest if you ever go to a winter guard show, go to the cadet groups, go see the cadet groups, go see all the groups, because they give so much.
Yeah.
So much.
They're performing with their pinky toes.
Yes, they are.
Mm-hmm.
All right, our next question of the day is, what are some successes you have seen and some failures we have learned from during the COVID-19 era? Sorry.
I don't know if there's any failures that came out with it. I mean, I think.
Yeah, it was a very big learning for everyone, honestly. Yeah.
So I just think there's been a lot of learning. And I mean, if people want to say failures, numbers went down on programs across the US.
Yeah.
Like that happened to everybody. And I think people are just now on the upswing of getting it back to where it used to be. Maybe that's a failure, but I think that I think every, I guess, tier of a program learns something, like, being more creative as far as, the production value and everything is concerned, and like stepping back and being like, how much or what can I do is going to be valuable to my group, like during rehearsal. Instructors had more time to think about that and then put that into play. And not to mention, like, there is all these different ways to teach. I have kids in person, I have kids virtually, I have some that, you had different ways to teach. So that was learning too.
Yeah.
And not just from the instructor standpoint, but, from the kids as well. I think it's something that I feel like we've got a magic card in our back pocket now, so that if it happens again, we know what to do, and we didn't have to reinvent or invent a wheel to teach. And it's something like, okay, well, if this ever happens, this is what we go to. So I think we did more learning. I don't think there was a lot of failure.
Yeah, and I think like one of the biggest successes, of course, from COVID-19 is that WGI sustained, then WGI came back out again this year, so it didn't go under, luckily. Woo! And like we were able to have championships again, which was amazing. And also too, I feel like there was a really huge push for like digital catalogs when COVID was happening. So many different instructors started creating online resources, putting videos online, doing different things for their own students, but then obviously making it public. So I feel like now coming out of it, we're seeing just a wide variety. Like, it's not anymore where you can just go online and search like color guard rifle help. It'll actually pull up results now. You'll be able to go to WGI websites, Intronics, me, Irving. Like, there's just so many different people now that are doing different things like that. And it's people that didn't even have an interest in social media. It's just instructors that just wanted to put their stuff out because they made it for their own kids. So now we see so many different things online and stuff to where I feel like we kind of doubled our educational resources over the last 2 years because a lot of people were just at home making those resources. So I feel like that's one of the biggest steps, honestly, of what happened.
Mhm.
Instructors Roundtable Series. I think it helped us to think outside the box because during the virtual year, like we couldn't share the same equipment. We had
Yep.
to we couldn't touch each other. Like we're such an emotional activity, and that's very big when you're doing weight sharing and all that stuff. That we couldn't do that. So how can you showcase something you can't do?
Yeah. And there was even with the digital catalogs and stuff, there was a big push for now, like what we were talking about, there's a virtual medium now where people had to create like WGI solo shows virtually. So it's one of those things where now I feel like there was also a big uptick in like digital advertising for our community, to where people are making more flyers, people are getting better at making promo videos, making like recruitment videos. Like people are going all out with all the things that they're doing, and it wasn't happening before COVID-19. And now that we did have to, we're having to pull out all the guns to try to recruit kids and be all flashy and stuff. So now people are literally making full-blown promo videos and stuff. So I think we're seeing a very big uptick in video production side of things, and almost showcasing it out to social media rather than just to our own community.
I've always thought that color guard, this activity, was the largest, smallest community.
Yeah.
Because everyone does it, but still so many people don't know about it. And this is another way to push this activity into a mainstream. And you've seen it more through the years, being more, what do you call it? More mainstream. There was, color guard on Glee. There was color guard performing with Lady Gaga at the Super Bowl. There was color guard,
I think they just performed at DragCon last night too, at the LA Convention Center with Latrice Royale too. There was
yes.
Yeah.
Latrice used to do color guard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, and it's just, it's an uptick, I think. And this is the way to do it. And I feel like that is a good thing that came out of COVID, because now we can put it into ways for people to see it that usually wouldn't.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing for these kids to see, not just in their high schools or, it like that, but, everywhere else. And not to mention that is a good resource for those groups that regionally don't have that, that instruction that they can usually get from Midwestern, but basically Midwestern kids who have their pull of it. So.
I didn't really notice about that until you guys mentioned it, because I know there was two club commercials. Like Diamante was an Alexis commercial, something like that.
Yeah.
And there was this hotel commercial about this kid going to a winter guard competition. They called it flag dancing.
Yeah, flag dancing. I remember that.
I just wish someone movie to just reach out to one person. Is this the right way to do it?
Right.
Just a simple email.
But you saw that perspective from a person that never knew anything about activity to go there. And that was mainstream. So I think you were definitely on the point there.
Yeah.
All right. Our next question is question number 7. In what area are we seeing the activity move forward as we grow out of the COVID-19 era? I think you guys just know what's going to come next, because you talked about it in the question before.
What?
What?
I think you guys just know what comes next because you hint about it. The question.
Oh yeah, before the questions. I do think I feel like health and wellness, very honestly. I feel like so many things grew out of these last 3 years. Marching Health doing such big pushes for proper warm-ups, proper stretch technique, proper shoes, proper clothing. Everyone pushing obviously for background checks, pushing for child mandation, all things like that we kind of saw these last 3 years, because we were able to take a step back and reevaluate all the policies and regulations and stuff and add things where we needed to. Obviously, we saw the safe sports stuff at WGI, safe sports stuff at GCI. So I feel like as these years like went on and stuff, every single month we saw like almost something new, especially when COVID first started. We saw like almost new like things coming out about how to protect your kids and stuff. So obviously it carried over after COVID and stuff, and we're doing the same thing and still on those regulations. So I feel like health and wellness is, like, for me at least, like the biggest push coming out of here and the biggest growth I've seen, because it's just like, it's almost completely different than it was back in 2019.
Right. I feel that way, and more along the lines to the up and coming teachers or educators. Because I feel like, you know, well, I was there, you were there when we first were able to be a director somewhere. It's just like, great, I'm going to work for pennies. And I'm not saying that you are going to, you know, get the salary that you want, but like for the amount of time that you put into it, and not to mention, like, we all know this, like how much sleep you don't get, how much, you know, like, food, like, you know, you're eating fast food in the car going from one rehearsal to the other. Just a lot of things you got to take, and a lot of hits you have to take. And yes, you're going to have to do those things, but at the same time, be nice to yourself the same way that you would be nice to, you know, a fellow staff member, or, you know, the same way you would be nice to a kid, or the way that you would want someone to treat you. You treat you that way. And I think that we, as instructors, will look at things and say, well, no one else is going to do it, I am. Well, that's, I mean, delegating was really hard for me, like hard. I mean, I would do so much, and yeah, and people would be like, do you need help? And I'm just like, because if I mess it up, I know who did it. You know,
Yeah,
I don't have
exactly.
to blame anybody.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's just like, well, no, you hired someone, trust them enough to do the job, give them the tools that they need to do the job well, and then leave, like, let them do it. Yeah, I think there's a lot of times when we take on those jobs as an instructor or director or a tech, and you know, that's what you do. And for the techs as well, like, you know, I know a lot of people will, you know, step into those roles, and it's just like, yeah, they're asking a lot of you because you have to clean what is written, but you're also like the ear, you know, that the kids can talk to sometimes too.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of mimic anything that your director is doing that's going to like help nurture these kids, like you said, you know. So yeah, moving forward out of this, I hope people are just mindful. I guess that's my biggest thing. And not just of themselves, of each other, and you know, the approach of things, how we speak to each other, how you speak to kids, if they use certain pronouns or not, you know, that kind of thing. Like, get to know it, and you know, own it. If you don't know it, learn it, you know, because you're asking these kids to learn color guard, you can learn that too.
Yeah, and just like you said too, especially with the wellness side of it, I also feel like too, we're seeing a lot more like almost like mentorship, I feel like, from the older generation in the activity now, versus before. I just feel like not so much that they were against it, but there was just not a lot of social media activity from them. But because we were all secluded, they all came out on social media, right? And then it stuck throughout. And now I feel like there's a lot more mentorship throughout the community. I feel like we saw an uptick in all the Facebook groups, like around the activity, just grew so much. Everyone's not scared to ask questions anymore. Everyone's giving feedback no matter what level you're at, whether you're on the WGI board, whether you're a first year instructor. Everyone is just trying to help everyone now. And I really don't remember it being like that before COVID, as intense as it is now, as intensely helpful.
Right. No, and I totally get you on that, because I'm one of those people who are like, oh, I can't talk to this person because they're so elite.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, if I, you know, I'll probably not talk, you know, and at this point now, it's just like, you're human, I'm human. We both like this, you know, this activity. If I can chew your ear off for 2 seconds just to ask a question, and then it also becomes a thing like, you know, hey, this person's easy to talk to. I completely get where they're coming from. You know, the more that you invite, the more that there's information being like exposed to each other, and this just goes for everybody, like the more we can understand each other as a whole.
Yes, absolutely.
So
yeah.
100% agree, because like we did a round table where we had Heather Graham, and I was like fangirling, and I was like, oh my god, she's like the Heather Graham. But like when you talk to her, she's like such a normal person, and like, we forget that these amazing people who do amazing things are normal people. And yes, if you're afraid to ask, I mean, you would never know. But like, they are willing to help. They are willing to provide information. They are willing to give you tips to be successful. Like when we had Mike Rosales on one time, I was like, oh my God, he's Mike Rosales! And it's just like, and he just so down to earth and very calm and very articulate about like, it's not trying this. And I'm just like, God, I'm gonna start breathing. Kind of moment. And we fail to see that those people are human. And those people are real.
Yeah.
They are human like us, and everybody started in a different place. Everybody was amazing when they come out the womb. Like
that is where it happens. Like I break this down to everybody like this. It's just like if every kid that we taught in a color guard, you know, wants to go on and teach a color guard, and you know what I mean, and it keeps going, there's not enough color guards for that, you know. Like not everyone we teach in color guard is going to love it so much that they want to do it, you know, or, you know, they want to keep going past their performing years.
Right.
But you do get the lump sum of those kids who do that, you know, and then they keep going and then they keep going. Cause like, I mean, you can think about how you were when you were in color guard, when you first started out. Like, I don't know about y'all, but I was backyard Betty all the time, you know, wearing it out. And then, you know, you rise up that way because, you know, this takes hard work. Like you're not going to just get it.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then when you come from like, I don't want to say I wasn't good, but like I wasn't great, but you know, if I can do it, anybody can. That's what I think. So
100%.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Evan.
I'm gonna like interject in for a second. But I just wanted to say, like, I really feel like as a result of us going through COVID and all of the things that everyone has experienced, I really think that it has exposed such a human nature for everybody. I think it brought everyone on the same level because we were all experiencing everything together on the same level at the same time in real time. And so it made people, like, especially for me, from my experience, because like I know I see people that I'm like, oh my God, they're so great and all these other things. And then I see them either like post something on social media or I'll interact with them or whatever. And they're just like, oh yeah, I totally had the exact same experience. And I'm not sure exactly how I'm navigating this, but I'm figuring it out as it goes. And so the more that happened, the more like I saw, and other people too, some of friends of mine saw, like, this is a very human thing. This is not something that's like, oh, well, only the elite of the elite are making it through and then everybody else is suffering. Like, no, everyone is on the same page. And it just created that sense of community, like Robert said, that everybody's going through it, that we're all like literally there. And so it's not really hard for us to reach out, and it's not, you know, a thing or a barrier anymore. Like kind of COVID kind of basically stripped that away. It made us all like the same to some degree, I guess. And that's what I feel like this moving forward, I feel like that's what is going to be the thing that propels the activity even more, because even seeing people like do like their virtual shows and kind of seeing how more groups were being seen than normal, because I know for a fact that I paid heavy attention when WGI was like, okay, we're going to do the virtual thing and we're going to open it up to everybody and everybody just submit the things. And then getting on Flow Marching and looking at the many groups that were participating in that I had never seen like on the roster, especially in A class, like it just like blew out of the water. It was so like encouraging and so refreshing. And then, you know, for them to continue that again this year, I was just like, even more giddy to see even more groups that typically probably wouldn't have normal access to that be seen and to be heard and to have people love on them and say, hey, I saw your group, it was fantastic. It was just like COVID, as negative as it was, it really just made everything even more human and more reachable, within arm's reach. And I think that was just like amazing. And now, even to this day, like anyone that I see that I'm just like a huge fan of, I'm just like, I'm not as apprehensive about reaching out to them and saying, hey, I'd like to pick your brain about something, because I know that at some point in your career, or at some point in your life, whether it be during COVID or even before COVID, you were roughly in the same place as I. Like, you were just trying to navigate it and figure it out too. So your journey, yeah, you've been walking on this earth longer than me, but it doesn't mean that the information that you've learned it should be kept to yourself. It should always be shared. And I think that that's what COVID opened up the opportunity to everybody, is to, let's share, let's reach, let's love, let's hug, let's spread our message out, so that way we can isolation.
And now you see why it was the smart side of my brain.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yes,
You hit
absolutely.
on like so many things, and I think you even said like 3 different show titles when you were talking too, because I was like, oh, but no, you're right. That sense of community, and plus, like, there's some things that we did, teaching, like I did when I first started, that I don't want, kids who are coming up to have to do. And obviously right now too, like, I have dropped that whole like, oh, I can't talk to them, and I'm just saying, hey, I'm going to talk to you because this is what I think, yeah, like it's, I love that people are like coming out of that shell to say congratulations. And like, my biggest thing is give people flowers now, what I mean? And share that knowledge now. Like, why not? I want to see everybody flourish, and I think we all do. I'm almost positive we all do. So yeah, God, I love what you said.
I definitely love that. I don't know, Robert, remember our equipment
Thank you.
equipment panel where we had that lady that was from North Carolina, and she was like, I don't know how to set my program up, and like, I don't know what equipment I need to get, and everybody just jumped in and was like, girl, we got you. It was such a community moment, because it was just like, she felt comfortable in this medium to ask for help, and everybody was just like, girl, we got your back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, all right, moving on. Oh, y'all just so good at this. Come here, y'all, every Zoom. Just playing. What avenues are being created with this new normal?
Like we mentioned, I think the WJ Solo, the virtual aspect of things, I feel like is the biggest avenue, to where just even aside from recruitment and promo videos, people are just making videos like of their kids. You know what I mean? Just making stage shows and things like that. But then aside from that too, I feel like we're seeing, like Nicole mentioned earlier, a big uptick in like people working for their actual worth, especially as a newer instructor. And we're kind of seeing a very big uptick in people that are trying to actually take this as a solid career path, rather than a career path mixed with something else. And we're actually seeing people, I want to be a color instructor, like that's, or a designer, like I want to do that, not an instructor and like a nurse, or an instructor and, you know what I mean? And we're kind of seeing a super huge uptick in that aspect of it, where people are just, I want to do this with my life.
They just had, I think it was with Guard Closet or Style Plus or both, when they had this virtual contest going on with like, who wants to be the next new designer. And yeah. Oh man. And I judged the last one, and these, I mean, they're coming, they're trying to snatch wigs. Like the people that are coming up that really want to do this, they really want to do it. And I think where we are headed, I guess, are, finding more mentors for these people, and giving them the avenue they need, because it's so much easier to, I guess you could say, mentor a tech or mentor a director. we don't have that many people that can mentor a designer, mentor a program coordinator, and that's exactly what these kids like, and they're kids first because they're young, but this is exactly what those people want to do. There's just a lot more of that happening now. I think that's one. I think, and you touched on this already with the virtual, because I thought that the production value alone and the way that they were moving and things like that, like it's that
like
like a movie. Yeah, exactly. I remember watching so many and I was just like, this is great. Like, and it's such a great, excuse me, such a great way for those schools who just can't get the money together to go to WGI. They can still compete, and that's part of the reason why we do this, is to compete, Yes, we like to perform, but like there's a competition there.
Yeah.
And that gives them a way to actually compete and stay within the budget of what they have. So I think, it's all new stuff because they say, new normal. Yeah. But like right now it's one of those things. It's just like, well, it is an evolution to what we're actually doing. So when something is completely taken away, when you start to put the building blocks back to the way that it was, you are literally going to have branches of new things happening. And I feel like that these are our branches. I see you.
Just wrote the book. Just wrote a whole book. Yes. With that, 100%. 100%. I know, like, for me, from my perspective, seeing like groups like I never know, like Choctaw from Oklahoma. I saw them virtual and I was like, oh my God. And then also like the group from there's a group from North Carolina, Cleveland High School, and they did a simple.
Oh yes.
Like the song will come out tomorrow, and I was sitting there. I remember sitting in my room and like, just watching this show and just crying. I'm like, this is the most beautiful thing ever. And it was just like, it was just simple.
Need that, more than they need. I hate to say this, but more than they need a critique from a judge, they need to hear that camaraderie and that sense of community from other people in the activity.
Yes. Yeah.
So Robert was saying, more instructors were putting their kids on, social media and showing them off. Yeah, you should celebrate them. And they need to be celebrated. And if you watch what they're doing, like go out of your way to say something, to their instructors. Like, I liked this moved me. I love this song. I love these costumes, say, we all need that positive reinforcement. I don't care if you're on the floor or you're, watching your kids from the stands, like the whole program needs that positive reinforcement.
Right. Absolutely.
One last group. Hills this year.
Who?
Tina Hill's Classical World Guard.
Oh yes. This is not a flat.
Yes. Talk about taking humor and something that we get talked about all the time, like transitions and flags.
Yeah, this is not a transition.
And making it to humor and making it part of a production.
Yeah.
That activity was.
I want to say, I think their indoor drum line, because they have a world-class drum line.
Yes.
Did like a show like that a couple of years ago. Yeah. It was either them or Ayala. I know it's a California show because like they're from California. Chino Hills is from California, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen one of those two schools did that. And I was just like, you may be on something.
Yeah.
Clever. It's so clever.
Yeah, there was a school that did like the percussion sheets or something, right? And like what the percussion sheets say. Yeah, Etowanda.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Was that California?
Yep.
Oh, see, I knew it was a California group.
I love it. All right, and our next question is, what avenues are being closed due to our new normal? We talked about all the way they're opening, so what are things that we no longer do?
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know about anything closing.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe we're closing the bad things that were passed down. Like, I think of it kind of like as the generational curse. You know?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so like performing on a bad leg, or like performing when injured, period. Performing when injured, or doing it despite not being respected, or doing it despite not being paid as much as you should. You know, all of those things. I think that stuff is closed or canceled, as the kids like to say.
Yeah.
I gotta update my terminology.
Hey, I'm old, I'm trying to. But I don't feel like there are things that are not done. Like, if anything, COVID has made us stop. Like, we had a literal stop and reset on the whole activity, on the whole world. And when you stop this thing, like, if you want to really look at it this way, stop and reset. When you are stopping to reset, something went wrong. So you're thinking about that when you're trying to reset again, and make sure you don't do that wrong thing again. So that's what I think that's something.
Yeah.
Exposed. So yeah, I mean, with the, I don't know, I don't feel like there's any avenues that haven't been opened back up.
Which is surprising, honestly. Like I said, which is surprising, honestly, like coming from such a huge reset and such a huge, like, everyone just had to stop this. It is surprising that kind of nothing closed, but exactly what she said, it's like everything kind of is as it was before, if not more now, and earlier.
And in different like, well, in different ways to get that information too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think there's anything, unless, like, honestly, I miss the DVDs. Oh
yeah. So bring back the DVDs, please.
Bring back the DVDs, please.
Let's start the petition today. Bring back the WGI DVDs.
I am happy that there's a person on YouTube, I think Bernice Yu, that all the WGI in playlists from this past year. So you can just, every single finals group, you can go watch. I don't believe they have prelims and semis, but every single finals group can go playlists.
Oh, that's great.
Send me that link.
I will. Yep.
All right. The next question, our final question of the evening. How are people preparing for the future as we transition out of the COVID era?
I honestly think, like Nicole was saying, there's a very big focus on the self, right? Making sure, like, if something like this were to happen again, like if your income got taken away, doing something like this, how would you be protected moving forward, right? Making sure you are getting your worth, so you're not like not living paycheck to paycheck, just trying to do this activity. You're putting yourself or giving yourself more value to where you can now work and make sure that you are safe in case something like this happened. And I feel like that's a huge uptick that we're seeing, is just making sure that you are valuing yourself, just like Nicole was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think not just, I mean, once you start to do that for yourself, the people around you, the people that are employing you, you know, they will see it and know, oh, you know, can't do that anymore. But I think, I feel like we are, I mean, the future of it, I think we're seeing it. Like, people are being more creative with their shows. They are seeing the sheet. Yes, that's one thing, but like, let's go with what you want to. And I don't think people were comparing themselves to other groups when they were, you know, thinking up their shows. And maybe they have time to think up a couple of shows, you know. I liked just the extreme, like, oh gosh, what is it? Uniqueness of everybody's show.
Yeah.
And I hope that they keep doing that. And yes, I think that the future is just bright for A-class because they had so much more time, you know what I mean, to really sit with their equipment instead of here, you know, what we're trying to do. And like, I just love watching A-class anyway. But, and then for everyone else, I think as a community, we will start to we will start to interact with each other even more. And yeah, not all of the interaction that we're going to do is going to be in person. So yeah, we will do Zooms, but it will always be open so that someone can ask someone else their take on things or advice or anything like that. Like, it's a community that keeps thriving. And yes, we are always going to have younger directors. We're going to have younger techs, and most of us will teach the way we've been taught, but also too, you go into a program that probably wasn't the same as whatever program you came out of. So they need some kind of mentorship on that, and they have to reach out for it.
Yeah.
So, oops.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's absolutely like right on par with everything. I think, like, again, from my experience, just locally, I've seen a big increase in just awareness in general, and like awareness of not just self and others, but just like the community as a whole, and really taking time to say, okay, not just worrying about oneself or worrying about your group or whatever, but also just saying, hey, let me take some time to check in with other groups to see if anyone needs anything. And I know, speaking for me personally, like, that's typically what I do is, and for example, I had a friend of mine reach out to me a couple of weeks ago asking if she knew anyone that could help her with her color guard for the fall. And I was like, as of right now, I don't know, but I will definitely reach out to, my friends and people. And, if you can't find anybody, I'm definitely here as a resource to like give you any information, or even just, send in a video to kind of like give you some feedback or whatever you need. I'm definitely here as a means for resource. So that way you're not just like trying to navigate this by yourself. Like, you have someone that can, give you whatever you need or try to assist you in whatever way that you can. And I've found that really, really encouraging. Whereas before, like, nobody, at least in my area, would do that kind of stuff. And I know, like, even within Mississippi, and I'm not like downplaying Mississippi as a state or anything, but we do have that problem of like reaching out with other people, because prior to COVID, some of us, not all, but some of us would have like this like persona of like, oh well, my group's doing really well, I'm not going to reach out, I don't have a need to. And then those groups that are not doing as well, they see those groups that are doing really well, and they're like, super fans of them, but they're also intimidated because of the fact that they are, such a well-placing group or a well-performing group or whatever. And now that we've gone through this COVID period and breaking down, kind of like what I said earlier, it's making everybody like, okay, let's reach out and check in and say, hey, okay, what do you need? And what do you need more than just, from a educational standpoint or from a performative standpoint? What do you need as a person? Like, how are you? And just being able to greet other people and say, okay, I see your group, I see the work that you're putting in, keep, doing whatever you're doing. If you need more help, I'm here, I'm rooting for you, I'm cheering for you. And I think that is like part of the new, I wouldn't say new normal, because I wouldn't put it in that way, but I think that's our new standard moving forward as a community, from, local, and then going to statewide, and then national and international. So I think that like that's going to be our new transition out of this COVID area. And I'm excited to see where it grows and blossoms from group to group, and how everyone starts to become, their own identity, but still have that sense of community intertwined.
No, that's beautiful. Yeah. I definitely agree on that as well. Like,
100%.
That's a huge thing when people will be like, hey, can you look at it? And I've done it. I did it last winter. They're like, can you look at my show? And it's just like, yeah, okay, you're going to get back a dissertation, but are you ready?
Right.
Yeah.
I think people also realize there are different ways to success. Like, you can stay within your own identity. Like, you don't have to be the Paramounts, or you don't have to be the product Cincinnati's, or you don't have to be the MBUs or the CGTs of the world. Like, you can be yourself, uniquely yourself, and still be successful. That's one of the biggest thing I noticed this year about the color guard world. It was a lot of people was truly being themselves and their naivety, and not trying to emulate other people.
Yes.
The piece of success.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And from watching WGI over the last few years, that has been something personally for me that I've been wanting to see more of, as things go on. Because I remember the very first time that I had ever seen anything color guard related, I was like super fangirling over everybody because it all was exciting to me. And then the more that I, became active in the activity and got years experience with marching and performing and stuff like that, I started to see trends. And then those trends were like influencing other people because they saw those same trends. And then everybody was trying to copy or do something similar along because they figured out the system and they plugged in the math and numbers or whatever and were trying to get that same result that they saw from someone else. And I was just, I remember distinctly going through a period of like, where I still love the activity, but I was just like, I'm kind of tired of seeing the same things like happening in like seasons. Like it would happen maybe for like a couple years where like a handful of groups would do the exact same style or structure or, creative aesthetic as someone in world class or someone in open class or another group that they saw. And I'm just like, I would love to see people just be themselves, like just be whatever group that, fits you, that fits your identity, that fits the kids, because it's so much more engaging, especially like if you're, someone watching at like a regional or, even at WGI, like in world championships, it can get kind of like a little bit mundane seeing the same or similar style, like back to back to back to back. And, everybody's trying to fit in that formula that it becomes real bland. And so like this year was just so extra refreshing for me because I was like, yes, I see you and I see you and I see you. And I just love the individuality, but yet the still community between everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I had more fun watching like semis and some rounds of prelims than I did watching finals, just because you see, you see a lot more,
Yeah. Absolutely.
And and just being able to have that breath of fresh air, it's like, I want more. Now I want more. Yes. But I completely get where you're coming from because I felt that way a lot too. I mean, you can only imagine I've been around that long. So, you do see it. And yes, it does have cycles. And this was probably the first, time I've ever watched. And I didn't see a lot of the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was, I just, it's like, yay, that's great. Can we do more of that?
Yeah. Yes.
I just want to take the time to commend our activity for supporting A class this year. Like A class finals that supports what has never been. I have never seen it that strong. And I just want to commend like all those world class groups and open class groups that came and supported the A class finals. I just commend you because those A class kids, they go to all the open class and world class shows. And so when you know that open and world class is going to be sold out and you go to A class finals and then the stadium is half empty, that is very disheartening as a performer. And so I just want to commend everybody for going and supporting the A class because that is a foundation. All right, next is my favorite part of the whole evening. Questions from our audience. I know Evan's here, and Miss Susie, you can unmute yourself and ask a question to our panelists or anything you would feel like they can answer for you. So Evan or Miss Susie?
I did want to ask a question just to kind of pick both of your brains a little bit. What was, and I know we kind of like, you may have mentioned this earlier because I kind of stepped out for just a second, but how did you navigate personally, like while we were in the middle of going through COVID, like trying to corral everyone together and then trying to say, okay, we're going to do the thing, but it's going to be modified. And I guess more or less the question is, how did you guys process and what was your experience and journey going through all of that, even in, the middle of the pandemic? And then what was your takeaway as you were wrapping up the season for this year, whether you were on, the judging side or whether you're on the director side or teaching side or whatever your experience was? I hope that makes sense because that was kind of a little bit roundabout question.
I think
I'll start with you. I mean,
for,
yeah, there you go.
For me, I think the process of corralling, like especially my students and members and stuff, depended on the age group in the school. So it was going to be different per what the situation was. Some schools were obviously extremely disappointed to do virtual and kind of loathe coming, unfortunately, to the virtual classes. So when we were back in person, it was like massively better. And then other schools, we had them doing 3 virtual rehearsals a week, like normal, just like we had 3 normal in-person rehearsals a week, and they loved it because it felt normal. So it was different processes for each, but for me, it was a lot of trial and error for at least the first like 3 months. What are the kids gonna respond to on the Zoom call? What are they gonna like? Are they gonna be focusing? You know what I mean? You're trying to teach a drop spin and little Susie's like this, looking at the tree next to her, right? So it's like things like that for me as an instructor. I really dove into the educational aspects of everything, of how to keep like a kid's attention on Zoom, right? And how to now keep a kid's attention throughout the rest of the rehearsal. And I, for myself, dived more into myself as an educator and myself as like a person in that realm. And then coming out of it, now that we are back in person, it's really helped me kind of see a lot more individualistic things within my blocks that I do when I'm teaching and choreographing and stuff. Now I'm able to kind of pick out different issues that I see per kid. And now that helped me from the process of diving into it as an educator beforehand. And now being able to see a kid like, oh, that kid has an issue with their left hand kind of dropping during drop spins. I know how to fix it because I had that issue 3 different times during Zoom and how to fix it virtually. So in person, it's going to be a breeze. You know what I mean? And then the process of kind of corralling them, obviously, but then now going back in person, I honestly saw a little bit of kind of like not a non-excitement for coming back in person, but almost like we were home for so long, you know what I mean? And we were kind of doing nothing that we liked that feeling. Yeah, they got used to it. They liked that feeling of being home and not actually having to travel to school to do it. So for me, it was a lot of like growing pains, right? Of almost like a push and pull with the students of like, you got to give me at least an inch. You know what I mean? You got to give me something to work with. And it really forced me to try to focus on those aspects of a student and look for those little inches rather than just shutting down and being like, well, you don't want to do it anyways. You know what I mean? And really, really as an instructor, trying to find that, well, there's a little inkling somewhere in there and I felt it, I can get that and pull at it. And that now is like really what I focus on with kids as I'm working with them and stuff at all these different groups.
Well, for me, when we started doing virtual, we had to go with what the district wanted. So it was really hard to do some things. And once we, went virtual, like I already knew that it was my last year with that program. And by the time I had finished, not saying that my foot was halfway out the door, but by the time the school year had finished, I knew that I was going into judging. So, that's what I was doing. And then like kind of picked up another smaller program and they did a lot, like class was virtual 100%. And we had 2 rehearsals a week. So during those class times though, we did, we looked at women in color guard. We looked at like different programs that have been around for a really long time. Like those kids had never heard of South Shore Drill Team. So I let them watch a documentary on them. And so we just I got to do some things that I usually wouldn't get to do when teaching color guard, is basically teaching like the history of color guard, so it was different that way. Mm-hmm. And then we 2 days a week would come in and have rehearsal and, we did football band, but that was it. And that's pretty much what I was around for. It was that, okay, done. And that was the end of what I was doing for teaching wise. Judging wise, I mean, I probably emailed, called, texted so many people during a training session that's usually in person. And I, did it alone online. So like there was a lot of questions I had. And I still ask them, and there's still a lot of questions I have, and I still ask them. And, you know, just the way that I facilitated myself going through that, and then going into, actually, once I stopped and I had to go into like the shadowing phase of judging, there was still no in-person shows going on. So
Yeah.
I had to wait until, you know, the next season, which was this year, and then go in and trial a couple of times, and then start to get in there with, you know, and with other shows. So I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things, like I'm learning right now, you know.
Yeah.
There's nothing, the only thing I can pull from in a lot of the things that I do is like commentary that I've heard, commentary that is within the box of the number that I've chosen. And then sending, you know, I've sent that commentary off to different mentors that I have, and they, you know, get back to me. It's just like when, you know, we send a video to our friend and it's just be like, hey, give me some pointers. I send my commentary off to different different judges, and they give me, you know, pointers back. So it's just like, I'm my color guard right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm cleaning me so that I can give good commentary and good numbers and good, you know, feedback.
Right.
To the directors. And it is a learning process. It's still a learning process, because like it's an educational thing. We're supposed to be educating. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
You, Miss Susie, I know you muted earlier.
I did. Hi. So, so I'm Susie, and I'm Nicole. I had to laugh because you said you're old. I've been doing color guard since the 90s, so 1990s.
Hi, girl, I know you.
So yeah. So I actually marched WGI and DCI in the 90s. I'm from Ohio originally. I'm in the South now. And you mentioned Homa Christian, Martell. I'm so happy because you said to watch cadets, and that makes me happy because I coach Live Oak Junior High. So when we're in the cadet group, so yeah. Those are my girls. And I know they spin great, but we're having to work on movement. So movement's our issue this year, so we're focusing on that. But anywho, my question is, we just did tryouts, and we had 9 girls, and that is like the lowest we've ever had. And it, like, I take everything personally, of course. And so I was trying not to take it personally, but you guys did say like numbers are down across the board. So I'm like, okay, I'm trying not to do that. But you also said be visual, make sure you're seeing things like that. But considering that we are a junior high, I'm trying to figure out, like, I don't know how these programs are so big. Like, I don't know how to get these girls excited about guard. Like, I don't know. I'm at a loss. I'm not real sure if you guys have any ideas on how to recruit girls, how to get them excited, how to get them, to try out. And I don't, I just, anything you could suggest. This year I was thinking about, like, maybe for football games, like try doing like upbeat songs, or, like, I don't know. I'm grasping for straws here. I just really, and it's not that I really want, like, I'm fine with 7 really good girls. Like, I'm fine with that, really. It's not like I want a huge, massive team. I just really just want girls that are interested in guard. Like, I just want them to be interested and learn something new. And if it's their thing, great. And if it's not, that's fine too. But it just saddens me when only 9 try out. It's like, okay, so we'll have a small team this year, and that's fine. We'll be small and tight, and that's good. But usually we have a good solid, like, 16 to 18 tryouts. So it's kind of like, why this year so small?
I think especially with junior high, there's the interest comes from almost being hands-on just a little bit, just so they can kind of feel it. They almost need to be like gamified in a way, like how we do things and stuff. Unless obviously the junior high program is already built up and there's a culture set up where the kid knows when they're in. But I honestly would suggest maybe once a month doing like a friends type of thing, like to where your students are able to invite friends to a rehearsal and do the last 30 minutes to an hour of the rehearsal, or at the beginning, and have their friends try things out. And I actually saw the Pride of Netherlands just did this like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they had their friends basically come and invite the friends and family to try out, and they loved it. You know what I mean? Their friends that have never touched a rifle before, that are just like maybe a colleague of theirs came and spun rifle, and now they want to do the winter season. So I think especially that, like if a kid is not approached by an adult, hey, come join this, and they're approached by another kid like, hey, I am enjoying this activity, it's a lot more in that child's mind than, oh, Susie said this was going to be a great experience. You know what I mean? Versus this is someone my literal age that went through this experience and is loving it, and now I'm going to love it as well. And then even if too, if there's Facebook pages like PTA pages, if there's any kind of parent pages on Facebook for your school or your school district, I found that at high school, which was the first time I ever heard of this, but they post their flyers in all the parent groups. So they will set up every and the parents and stuff, and they will post it in like 6 or 7 PTA groups, not even trying to reach the kids, but trying to reach the parents, because the parent will see an activity and be like, oh, maybe my kid can get into this, and then show it to the kid, have the parent and the kid support combined, and now they'll come to you as a package rather than just a kid. So those are honestly 2 suggestions that I've seen kind of work this year firsthand. But junior high, obviously, it is a very hard thing to get, you know what I mean? To get those kids interested, there has to be the gamification and there has to be the hands-on. But once you have that, they kind of fall in love. And then junior highs, for me, like they're the most passionate kids I teach because they're the youngest. You know what I mean? They're just
I love them.
Learn, they're getting comfortable with their bodies, they're getting comfortable with themselves, with their personalities, they come out of their shells. Like the kid from 6th grade to 8th grade is a completely different student versus a 9th grader. And even seeing that as their charter middle school, like for the past 4 years and stuff, not this recent year, but seeing how those kids interact versus how the high schools react, there was a constant, even though there's the culture set up to be good, to be successful, there was constant gamification that Jose would give them, right? Making sure that they had a reward at the end of rehearsal, whether that was just a good job and letting you know that you are successful in what you're doing, or whether it was maybe every once in a while giving them pizza or something, you know what I mean? Like something like that, because they are still young and they love things like that. But those concepts really, really helped. And now we have a program that has 3 guards at a junior high. You know what I mean? Strong. And it's from just the culture that he set, making sure the kids are going to consistently come back over and over and over again. And they do.
The other thing I was going to say is if you're, I mean, in middle school, they have a PE class. Maybe talk to the gym teacher and see if like a couple of days a week you could come in and show those kids color guard as a gym class, you know, thing. And have those kids who are already in guard with you, you know, be your assistants. Like he said, that I mean, honestly, it is a hands-on thing, and getting in the gym class is going to be the easiest place to go. And usually I think well, it's different in every state, but you know, usually they will separate girls and boys for gym. So
I think we do too.
But I think that's a good way to at least expose them to it and get hands-on, and then let them know, hey, we're still accepting members and all this other stuff. So,
and that's one of the best ways too, because you're going into a class knowing the kids are going to be there versus having the kids invite their friends hoping they show up. You know, you'll have, if they have 6 periods of PE, there you go, you have 30 kids each period, you're exposing them to over 200 kids. You know what I mean? You're bound to get it.
And if any kid ever says like, and you could have some like little information cards ready, because I would always do that, and it's just like, you just have to put, they have to put their name, their parents' name, email address, and like parents' phone number, because you got to get the parent first, you know, in that too.
Right.
So it really wants to do it, and they'll come home and tell the parent like, oh my gosh, I did this thing today and I really want to do it.
Yeah,
those are great ideas. Yeah.
So with me, some things that I've done is that I stole this from a friend of mine because I went on drum corps tour and I learned this from a friend of mine, and he Tavius Ford. We do dance party. Dance party where like literally one kid from the color guard, I put on Sierra's level up, and one kid get in front of the color guard, and we do whatever they do. So whatever kind of dance they do, we mimic that, and it's just because it's such a fun thing for them because they're like they come in and we're gonna okay, so we do a dance party today. Who are you gonna pick? Because I never pick like the normal leaders of the color guard. I pick the kids that I started picking the kids that stand in the back, kids, and trying to kind of get them out of the show and let them be free with the color guard. So that's one of the things tricks I do, and then also I do the same cross the floors every year, but like I change the music every year to something more upbeat. So cross the floors are fun, and then we do this in front. We go outside, like say if it's like a gym class, we go outside where people see us. So people see us. We're having fun. We're doing hip hop stuff, like, and so we become the cool kids, and I become the cool teacher on campus, and they go say, "Oh, I want to do this. I have never done this before. I want to do this," and it sparks their interest, and or I give them incentives like, "Hey, if everybody can get their tops this week, I'll do a TikTok with you." Or it's like incentive, like if everybody does a video assignment, we'll get catering. Not one. So it's just those small little incentives is what keeps me from. It's all about creating that atmosphere of this is something that we're going to work hard towards, but it's something that can be fun. That is the one thing like a lot of instructors that we get so drained on like this is technique, do this. We forget to make it fun.
Yeah,
we have
absolutely
kids to want to come back and do it over and over again.
Absolutely.
And I always joke with them. I say, guys, the biggest lie of me are ever going to tell you is we're going to do it one more time. I see you're sitting in the back, but like, yep, he's telling the truth. He's telling the truth. Go ahead, you ready to do like 17 more times. So, it's just having that camaraderie with the kids, and I think it uplifts them, and it shows that, hey, we do all of our own thing. We can make it. I try to make it very unique from good to good because I have taught very small guards, and I've had small guards go big guards. Like, I show those kids you can do this. Like. You can. You don't have to have 30 people in the field to get a superior.
Yep.
You can have 5. You can have 3. You can have 9. Like you can be successful if you put your work and your time and effort to it.
Yeah, and like what you mentioned too about the dance party thing and like how people kind of walk around and see that, like proximity in a school setting is the biggest advertiser. So the closer your color guard can get to the student body, then the closer the student body can get to the color guard, and the more transfer of students you'll have back and forth. So it's like, that's a really, really big one. Like we kind of underestimate how when we're doing technique blocks outside and stuff, a kid walking by might love what they see and then go sign up that day. So just that proximity thing of as much as you can get your color guard in front of the rest of the student body, which is hard at first, right? If there's a small amount of girls and if they're very new too, it's hard at first to make them look away to where they're going to be comfortable spinning in front of kids and going to those PE classes. But it's something to where you're wanting them to open up themselves to the other students. That way the other students come into and learn.
Yeah, we always have a fight with the cheerleaders because there's like 300 cheerleaders and they're always, we get the leftovers. So
I was just about to say, try to get a cut list too. Sometimes
exactly. Just talk to that cheerleading coach and just be like, hey, can you send every kid that doesn't make it to me?
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, it's unfortunate at first, and it's not something obviously you ever even have to tell the kids, of course, that you've done, because then it will kind of negate some things, but it's something that you have in your back pocket. Like if you have a list of literally students and contacts that have an interest in a contact sport, then why not try?
That's true.
Dance team coach too. Sometimes,
like
Lily Patrice, literally their dance team's been the color guard. So,
and a lot of times dancers can coincide with the schedules of color guard too, whereas cheer it clashes a lot.
Yeah.
You'll get the leftover cheerleaders. I do it all the time. Hey, you didn't make cheerleader? Come do color guard.
We'll throw you too. Come on, we'll launch you.
Yeah, exactly. You all can teach us how to do them basket tosses. Come on.
Yes.
Winner, come on.
A nice give and take, right?
Right. Audience loves those. Come on. Thanks, y'all.
You're welcome.
Yeah, of course.
So here are my end of the announcements. We got Robert. Tell Miss Susie, tell your kids. Robert Jordan is coming down to Mississippi this Saturday.
Woo!
Yay! I'm so excited.
And your kids, Robert will be in the South, but we got to show him how the South welcomes celebrities.
I'm so excited.
Literally, like, no joke. When I posted the announcement for you being, I guess, clinician, like that same day, within like not even an hour had passed. Like I had at least 4 or 5 people like messaging me saying like, I'm bringing my group. What do we need to do to be there? And I was like, just show up. We'll take care of you when you get there. You know, we want you to obviously participate in the spin clinic, but Robert will be more than excited to have you. And we're just glad that you are participating in this, because there are so many people I'm just speaking for Mississippi alone. Like there are so many people in our state that watch you, that talk about you. Like I remember like when you first posted a video of you just writing or showing your choreography, like literally that day I was going into a rehearsal. Oh my God, do you see this one guy? He's like so amazing. Oh my God. And I'm like, yeah, he's amazing. And, you know, I'm thinking to myself at that moment, I was like, man, it'd be so awesome if we could get these people like to us so these kids can like, of course, meet them and take pictures and whatnot, but also really learn from them, because they're such, you know, highly esteemed people in the activity. And so to now have that opportunity to give it to, because of graduation and stuff. But of course, you know, I've even had people that message me and say, you know, is there a way that we can at least come for like maybe 10 minutes and then like leave? And I was like, we don't really care what you do, as long as you show up and participate and learn. Like that's like the whole point of all of this. So we're just grateful to have you, and like we're super excited there. Just know that you're gonna have like tons and tons of people fangirling over you.
I'm so excited to come and teach. I'm very, very
Full
excited.
color teams making this mandatory for their kids. Like,
Oh my gosh.
That's
awesome.
the funny thing, I have to explain people that the guy who spins is Robert Jordan.
Yeah. Sometimes I do too. Yeah.
Hey, like I told the cast a few shows like, Robert Jordan teaching my clinic. I said, it was like who? I said it was like, well, I was like, he's really famous on TikToks. And the kids, no joke, goes, well, one person I know that's famous on TikToks is the guy who spins. And I'm like, that's Robert.
Oh, I'm so excited to be out there. Thank you guys for bringing me too. I'm so excited.
It's gonna
That's
be
awesome.
well, I think this is also because you guys get to see the sneak peek of who's going to teach, who's going to talk for our next session, which is going to be in class. So, without further ado, I can finally reveal who is going to be our guest panelist. And first up is Miss Beverly Brayhan, who is a WGI judge. WGI judge, she does for our circuit, and she does all over. She's an incredible, amazing person. Friend of mine. I love Miss Beverly Brayhan. And so she's going to be on that panel with, everybody knows him, everybody loves him. He has several world-class medals, and that is Mr. Michael Lentz is going to be gracing on the A class. So they're going to be talking about everything A class, breaking down the color, breaking down the sheets, anything you want to know. Talk about A class. It's going to be a great time. So I'm super excited about this one. It's going to be
Awesome.
Yeah, that's gonna be awesome. Wow.
So, thank you guys for being here today. Appreciate you for your time. Thank you, Nicole, for being amazing. Thank you, Robert, for always being amazing. You guys, y'all made this so easy. Okay, right here.
Good.
That's what we were here to do.
Yep, exactly.
Yes, it was so just effortless having you all, and hopefully, like, we'll get you guys to come back again and participate because
Yeah,
it'd be
absolutely.
wonderful.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
love to have you back. Love to have you back. And this, like I said, this was to record night. We will send this to our circuit and to any of the many emails I've got this on the playlist, on our email list. So all our email signups, we get a copy of all this. And if I get any questions, I will be forwarding them to you.
Okay.
Yay, I had a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys. You guys have a great night. And
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you guys.
Y'all.
Bye.
Bye.